Who's got it better than us? Nobody.
With training camp underway all across the league, let's take a look at the offensive roster for the Los Angeles Chargers, who've gone through some of the biggest changes this offseason, including the hiring of Jim Harbaugh and the move to their brand new facility in El Segundo, California. And with that, let's jump right in at the quarterback position. Obviously at QB1 we got Justin Herbert. Let's not spend too much time on him as he's the face of the franchise and just 1 year removed from signing a 5-year $262 million deal. So there's really no question about whether or not he's making the team. Then you got Easton Stick. He was drafted in the 5th round back in 2019, and he's been the backup since Philip Rivers was the quarterback. He's the winningest quarterback in FCS history with a 49-3 record, taking North Dakota State to 2 FCS championship titles. He's also an elite athlete, posting a 9.46 relative athletic score, which should fit well with Greg Roman's offense. He was finally able to start for the Chargers after Herbert went down in week 13 last year, and showed enough to Joe Ortiz and the current regime to warrant him a contract extension this year. With that being said, it's safe to say he's making the team as a backup quarterback, and not just because he has a hilarious name. Then we got Max Duggan, who was drafted in the 7th round out of TCU last year. He spent most of last season on the practice squad, which I expect to be the case moving forward as well. I understand that Harbaugh kept 3 quarterbacks during his 4-year tenure with the Niners, but I just don't think Duggan's ready to lead this team in the event the 2 guys in front of him go down. And last year we got Casey Bowman. He signed as a college free agent this year from Augustana, which is in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. The 6'6 quarterback is probably a camp arm and will likely be cut, unfortunately. He does have an outside chance of making the practice squad if he beats out Max Duggan, but it's just really unlikely. Moving on to the running back position, the Chargers currently have 6 of them on the roster, and will likely keep 3 given Harbaugh's track record. First up, you got Gus Edwards. Gus the Bus has been one of the bigger free agency additions to this team, and there's no question he'll make the roster, as he signed a 2-year $6.5 million deal. He's already familiar with Greg Roman, as he spent 4 years with him in Baltimore. He's currently recovering from an unspecified offseason surgery, but should be good to go once the season starts. Then you got J.K. Dobbins. He's got all the talent in the world, but injuries have been his biggest issue. He signed a 1-year $1.6 million deal this offseason with $50,000 in guaranteed money, which tells you a lot about what the front office thinks about his availability. But yeah, when he's healthy, he's a solid running back and is going to make the squad as well. Then you got Kamani Vidal, the 6th rounder out of Troy this year. He's a roster lock for sure, given that he's Joe Ortiz's pick. He'll likely start out as RB3, but could see himself getting more playing time with the injury history of the 2 guys in front of him. Next up, you got Isaiah Spiller, the former 4th rounder from Texas A&M. He hasn't shown that much over the course of 3 seasons, but is a decent pass catcher. He doesn't really contribute on special teams at all, as special teams coordinator Ryan Ficken opted to activate Elijah Dotson on game days over him last year, which is probably a reason why he's going to get cut. But yeah, it's not really looking good for Spiller to make this squad. Then you got Jarrett Patterson, who spent the majority of his career on practice squad for the Commies and Chargers, and actually got some first team reps the first couple of days of training camp thus far. He's a dark horse candidate to make the roster, but it should be a cut for now. Lastly, you got Elijah Dotson, the undrafted running back from North Colorado. He was a preseason hero last year where he showcased his elite speed by scoring 2 touchdowns against the Rams, but it's a long shot to make this roster with the guys ahead of him. Then we got our fullback Ben Mason. He's a former Michigan and Ravens guy and has ties to both Harbaughs. He has a reputation of being one of the toughest players out there, but is essentially a Walmart Pat Ricard. And I'd honestly rather keep an extra tight end to use as a fullback, but seeing as no one in the group fits his profile as an H-back, he might actually make the final roster cut. Moving on to the wide receiver position, I've already made a video on which wide receivers I think will make the cut, so yeah, check out that video if you guys want a more in-depth breakdown of the position group. But yeah, obviously Josh Palmer, Quinn Johnston, Ladd McConkey, DJ Chark, Darius Davis, and possibly both 7th rounders in Brendan Rice and Cornelius Johnson are going to make the cut. Since then, they've added Praise Alotoke by way of the International Pathway Program. The Nigerian-born player is an absolute speed demon, running a 4.39 40-yard dash, which places him in the 95th percentile. He also ran track for Trinity Western British Columbia, Canada, and Ohio State. He doesn't have much playing experience, having played only 1 year of club football for the Buckeyes, which isn't actually the football team, which is, kind of confusing. Unfortunately, it's unlikely he's going to make the roster, given the amount of young, talented players ahead of him. Next up, we got the tight ends, where there's currently 6 guys on the roster. Harbaugh will likely keep 3 to 4, depending on the fullback situation. But yeah, first up, we got Will Dissly, who's without a doubt a tight end 1 right now, and is making the team for sure. Serving as a wide tight end, he's by far the best blocker on the roster, and will bring in the element the Chargers have been missing in the tight end room since Virgil Green. Then you got Hayden Hurst, who's also making the team. He's more of a vertical receiving threat and already has experience playing this offense, having been drafted in the first round by the Ravens back in 2018. Then you got Donald Parham, the most unique tight end at 6'8" in the league in my opinion. He's an absolute cheat code in the red zone, but the only problem is he's constantly injured. But yeah, he's just simply too good to cut. Next up we got Stone Smart. The quarterback turned tight end is essentially a big slot who's not a great blocker, which is kind of important in G-Row's scheme. So yeah, he probably will get cut as well. Then you got Zach Hines from South Dakota State. He's one of my favorite undrafted guys this year and has great size at 6'6". He's a sure-handed receiver as attested by his teammates in college, but he has a redundant role to the other guys in the room, which will probably be the reason why he'll get cut. But yeah, he'll definitely be brought back to the practice squad. And lastly, you got Luke Benson, the undrafted guy from Syracuse and Georgia Tech. He caught 37 receptions for 430 yards over the course of 5 seasons in college, so he's definitely more of a blocking tight end. I think out of all these guys, he probably had the best shot at filling that H-back role, but I just don't know if he's good enough to make the team. Heading into my favorite segment of the video, we get the big boys in the trenches. Harbaugh's never kept over 9 linemen across his 4 years with the Niners, so I think that's a number we should expect come roster cutdown time with this group. With 15 offensive linemen on the roster, let's get the surefire starters out of the way. As Rashawn Slater is the unquestioned blindside protector for Herbert, Zion Johnson, through his inconsistent play, mans the left guard spot as he has extreme upside. Free agent addition Bradley Bozeman takes up the center spot, having played for Greg Roman on the Ravens before, and their shiny new toy in Joe Alt, who will line up at right tackle. Now say what you want to say about Trey Pipkins moving the right guard, but I trust Harbaugh's judgment in putting out the 5 best linemen out on the field. And even though he's never played the position in his life, tackles typically fare better when kicked inside, and just need to get used to having less time and space on pass blocking sets. As for our backups, the most likely to fill the remaining 4 spots are Jamari Sawyer, who started at left tackle and right guard for the past 2 seasons, and he gives tons of positional flexibility for the Chargers. He still could have a shot at pushing Pipkins for the right guard, but we'll have to wait and see. Then you got Brendan Hymes, who's the only guy in the room with any experience playing center. He took over last season after Will Clapp went down, and I guess he showed enough to the front office for them to not bring anyone else in the room to compete for the backup spot, which is kind of questionable. Yeah. Next up, you got Jordan McFadden, the 6th rounder from Clemson last year. He'll probably be the backup tackle as he had played left tackle for most of his career at Clemson and was a 3-year starter there. One thing to note, he's being experimented at both fullback and even tight end so far in training camp. So yeah, that's an interesting thing to see. Then you got Alex Leatherwood, the 17th overall pick in 2021. He's been bouncing around the league ever since the new regime in Las Vegas took over and has stints with the Bears and the Browns. The potential he has to become a good player is what Harbaugh and his staff are really betting on here. And with coaches who played in the NFL and know what it's like to line up on Sundays in Mike Devlin, Nick Hardwick, and Mike Iupati, he should be able to grow a lot more as a player. But yeah, his upside as a player is the reason why I think he'll be kept over other guys. Unfortunately, that means Foster Sarell, Carson Barnhart, Tyler McClellan, Willis Patrick, Brent Lang, and Bucky Williams will be let go. Of this group, Foster Sarell and Carson Barnhart have the best chances to be brought back to the practice squad. Sarell, who originally signed as an undrafted college free agent with the Ravens back in 2021, overlapped with Joe Ortiz and Greg Roman there, meaning that there's at least some familiarity between them. Since then, he's been a backup tackle and has been on the Chargers active roster the past 2 years, making 3 starts during that span. Then you got Carson Barnhart. He's coming off a national championship title with Jim Harbaugh of Michigan and has an inside track given the familiarity he has with the coaching staff. He's currently dealing with some sort of injury which doesn't really help his case on making the roster. However, his positional versatility, having started at 3 spots on the offensive line this past year for the Wolverines, could be a valuable asset as injuries piled up over the course of the season. With that being said, let's take a final look at the offensive roster. At quarterback, we got both Jay Herbo and Easton Stick. At running back and fullback, we have Gus Edwards, J.K. Dobbins, Kamani Vidal, and Ben Mason. Then we got our 3 tight ends, Will Dissly, Hayden Hurst, and Donald Parham. Though if one of the other guys can fill the H-back role, I could see them being kept over Ben Mason. Moving over to the receivers, we got Josh Palmer, DJ Chark, Ladd McConkey, Quinn Johnston, Darius Davis, Brendan Rice, and Cornelius Johnson. And lastly, we got our offensive linemen in Rashawn Slater, Zion Johnson, Bradley Bozeman, Trey Pipkins, Joe Alt, Jamari Sawyer, Brendan Hymes, Jordan McFadden, and Alex Leatherwood. With 25 offensive players filling the roster and the 3 special teamers in long snapper Josh Harris, punter J.K. Scott, and Digger the kicker, it brings us to 28 guys on the roster, leaving us with 25 remaining spots on defense. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did, feel free to like the video and subscribe down below, as it really helps out the channel. And yeah, let me know down below if you guys want me to make a separate video on the defensive side of the ball. But yeah, Thanks for watching the video.